Hello everybody! I've got 7 new books for you this week, and I hope at least one of them is the book for you. If you can relate to the feeling of having your whole world turned upside down, you might find a book soulmate in Rigel, the main character in this new book. She loves her life in Alaska. She and her family live in this little 2-bedroom cabin in the middle of this awesome, gorgeous land where they hunt, they homeschool, and they just enjoy nature. But things suddenly change when her parents decide to get a divorce and her mom decides to move her and her 2 sisters to the suburbs in Connecticut. Now, while her older sister is really excited about this, Rigel hates it. She misses the wilderness, she misses the animals, and she misses her freedom. Her dad tells her to give it 365 days, and it's honestly a really, really rough start. She has a hard time making her new friends at her new middle school. Even the teachers don't understand her. Her first glimpse of hope is this little bird that lives behind the school, which makes her start to think that if this little guy can hang, maybe there's hope for her yet. This would be a great one for those like Rigel who feel more at home outdoors and in nature than inside. Like many of Gordon Korman's other books, this one jumps between a fun and interesting cast of characters. First, we meet Kiana, who's dropped off at her new middle school by her step-monster and accidentally given another student schedule. She didn't really mind so much because she figures she's only going to be here a couple months tops while her mom's traveling for work. But when she walks down the hallway, looks for the classroom, she just can't seem to find it. It's like the number doesn't exist. So she pulls over a student, asks him where to find it, and he kind of just sucks in his breath and goes, "Oh, you're with the Unteachables." The Unteachables, it turns out, is a group of students who have been labeled as just problems, issues, or delinquents. And when she walks in and sees a group of them roasting marshmallows around a garbage can fire, she's not quite sure what to do. Turns out the teachers aren't really sure what to do either because they seem to get a new one all the time. None of them really seem to stick. So when Mr. Kermit, aka Ribbit by the kids, a burnt-out teacher who's just hoping to make it to retirement, is assigned to these kids, they don't really expect anything to change. But something slowly does, not just for the students, but for Mr. Kermit too. It's a funny book, but it's also a really fun book about learning to ignore how others might label you and just seek out those who truly believe in you. This is probably one of the most buzzy books of the week. The movie rights have already been purchased. It's a first in a new series. And what's it all about? Well, the story begins when AMARI's older brother, who's a superstar in so many ways, he received a full scholarship to not just 1, but 2 Ivy League schools, disappears. And AMARI doesn't understand why the police aren't looking harder for him, why the news isn't making a bigger deal about it, why they just seem to assume that he wasn't the awesome kid that he is. AMARI, however, is not willing to give up, and while she's looking around her brother's room, she hears this ticking noise coming from his closet. And when she opens it up, she sees a briefcase with a nomination for a summer tryout at the Secretive Bureau of Supranational Affairs. She's convinced he left this as a clue for her, and when she joins this strange camp for junior agents with not just others her age, but aliens, witches, dragons, and way, way more, it's full of mystery and adventure and magic, all the things that make for a really great story. And it's all centered around a really interesting, tough, likable main character. The other buzzy book this week is Concrete Rose. This is the long-awaited prequel to The Hate U Give, and it tells the story of Star's father, Maverick. It's about so many things, but one thing in particular is about how though you might grow up in a certain place or look a certain way, it doesn't mean you're any less capable or worthy of dreaming as big as anyone else on the planet. It's shelved in our high school collection because there is some strong language in it, but if you and your family are comfortable knowing that it largely is there to serve the story, they're welcome to email me and give you permission to read this amazing book. Evie's never really been interested in dating. She's been into math, physics, her friends, and she's been battling anxiety for quite a while. But with the help of her therapist and her best friend, she's starting to feel like 17 might be the year for her first kiss. So when a new transfer student joins her physics competition and starts to flirt a bit with her, she decides to say yes when he asks her out. And you know who can't stand this? Caleb, her friend. He's been on standby, patiently waiting for the day that Evie might show some interest. He just always thought it would be in him. So when new guy blocks his path, he has to take an alternate route and tries to connect with her anonymously in this online physics forum. So the story goes back and forth between the two of them as Evie goes back and forth between her two new interests, this fun new transfer student and the mysterious new physics chat companion. It's another cute one for the rom-com fans. Also pretty funny is This Will Be Funny Someday. 16-year-old Izzy isn't really known for her wit. She usually lets others do the talking for her, like her boyfriend, her huge group of siblings, her really high-profile parents. But when she accidentally walks into a comic club and suddenly ends up on stage, she surprises everyone, including herself, with some pretty funny things that come out of her mouth. So immediately after, a girl named Mo introduces herself and invites her to join her and her other college comic friends on the open mic scene in Chicago. Not really wanting to admit she's still in high school, she keeps her age and her life hidden from these new friends. And she keeps her new comic life hidden from her family and boyfriend. But sooner or later, people start to get suspicious, and she's forced to consider which one of these people she really is, the confident comic or the quiet student. The author points out that the boyfriend she created for Izzy is really not a model boyfriend. So if you've ever seen anyone or been in a relationship or friendship with someone who just doesn't give you the respect you deserve, Izzy provides a great example of how to find your way out of that. She's funny and smart, way more than she ever gave herself credit for. George's father passed away 2 years ago, but she still feels the loss very strongly. Before he died, he was a famous artist working on a series of 4 asterisms, which are these patterns of stars that are put together and made to look like something, like a constellation. One was a bird, one was himself, one was George's mother, and her mom and her best friend, Theo, are convinced that the last one was meant to be her. But George is not. In fact, she's starting to wonder if her best friend Theo, who was very close to her dad as well, was actually the subject of that last art piece. So she starts to push him away, even more so when Theo tries to get her to start making art again, enter into an art competition. Instead, she focuses on tracking down clues that her father left behind about that last piece of art. It's part mystery, partly a book about loss and family and friendship and finding yourself again after losing something or someone who was such a big part of who you know yourself to be. It's a lovely, thoughtful little book that I think many of you will really love.